says 6:01.
And we're late.
I'm late.
This is 6:01. Hold on. I got 6 o'clock.
All right, time to start. That attorney said we can start.
Have my permission.
I'd like to call this meeting of the County Commissioners, December the 18th, to order, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have a moment of silence for this Christmas season. Thank you. The county offices will be closed December the 24th and 25th. I believe we have another motion here we would like to make.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we extend that to the 26th to give the employees the day after the Christmas to get themselves rested up to come back to work. So I make a motion that we add the 26th of December to that list.
A second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. We now have the minutes for the regular session from December the 4th and the liquor minutes from December the 4th, and then the regular session minutes from December the 11th, and the closed session minutes from December the 11th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Now have a, get this thing working here. Report out of closed session. On December the 11th, 2018, the Commissioners held a closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter and to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation in accordance with general provisions, Article Section 3-305, B7 and 8 of the Annotated Code of Maryland, respectively. Topics to be discussed: pending or potential litigation. Reasons for closing: legal advice from counsel is confidential and matters related to litigation are confidential. No action was taken in closed session.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. We now have a public hearing on the agricultural land preservation districts, and we'll turn that over to our attorney, Tom Yeager.
Thank you. For the record, notice was sent out. This is the notice. The County Commissioners of Kent County will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 18th, 2018 at 6 p.m. in the County Commissioners Hearing Room, Mark Clayton Mitchell Jr. County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, for the purpose of discussing the voluntary creation of agricultural land preservation districts for the following properties: Thomas and Suzanne Speakman, 12474 Still Pond Road, that's map 12, parcel 38, the tax map. Janet Bernady, trustee, 31550 Lamson Forest Road, tax map 23, parcel 3. Robert and Carol Chance, trustees, 11550 Dudley Chance Road, tax map 23, parcel 54. Legacy Farms of Iowa, LLC, 12738 Galena Road, tax map 15, parcel 14. William David Ligger, Galena Road, tax map 15, parcel 10. And William David Ligger, Lamson Forest Road, tax map 23, parcel 141. The notice also indicated that if anyone required communication assistance, to contact the County Commissioner's office or visit Maryland Relay. And this hearing is pursuant to the Kent County Code of Public Laws, Chapter 171-5 agricultural preservation districts. If anyone is going to testify at this hearing, we would ask that they come forward, and I will swear them in, any witnesses. Planning director going to speak on behalf of
And maybe Miss Carla Gerber.
yes. Doc and Mrs. Gerber, if you could each raise your right hand. Do you solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in the matter before us shall be true and to the best of your knowledge and belief? If there's anything you want to offer and advise the commissioners at this time, this would be the appropriate time to do it.
As Mr. Yeager read out, there are 6 farms that are interested in voluntarily preserving their land through the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, run by the state. We are the local administrators for that. The farms have to be at least 50 acres and have meet minimum soils criteria of 50% class 1, 2, or 3, or woodland group 1 or 2. All of these farms meet those requirements. Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board has reviewed these applications and recommended approval, and the Planning Commission has also reviewed all of the applications and finding that they did meet the requirements, recommended approval.
Gentlemen, if you have any questions for the planner and the planning director, this would be the opportunity to ask them if there's any additional information that you'd like.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd ask for is that we had these put more on a county map as opposed to the individual plots, so we can make sure they're not. We could see where they're located to make sure they're not adjacent to anything.
We do have that map available if you would like to see it.
No, we're okay tonight, but I'm saying in the future.
Yes, certainly.
That's fine.
That was an oversight. We generally do that. So.
And maybe I could clarify that just a little bit, and maybe this is more my concern. We are a little concerned about there are some farms that have gone into ag preservation. Not saying that parts of the farm may not or should not have gone into preservation because it stops the growth of our county. And I think as we move into the future, we need to really analyze that and make sure that properties are not going in that might be in a growth area of the county.
Well, I can tell you that all of these farms are within the county's priority preservation area, which is pretty much all of the land that is zoned for agricultural zoning, or the Resource Conservation District. So under current zoning, they are all deemed to be appropriate for preservation.
Yeah, and I was not specifically speaking of any of these farms.
I'm just clarifying that
I think
that is. I'm
was.
trying to clarify that is something we do review,
Right.
and in the past, the Planning Commission has commented when they
Right.
is in a location that may not be appropriate for preservation.
Okay, thank you.
You might ask anybody in the audience if they have any comment.
We do have, commissioners, we do have 2 people who have signed up, Janet Bernaday and Robert Chance. Would you each like to speak? So I'll go ahead and I'll swear you in too if you're going to speak, okay? We can swear you in both at the same time, yeah. Do you solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief? Okay. Whoever wants to go first can.
First, thank you all. We were raised on these farms since we were little kids, and our dad started out with horses. And where I remember having pictures of the first tractor with no rubber tires; they were iron. So when we got W.D. Alice Chalmers, we thought we were right uptown. So I want to keep this. At this time, there's 4 generations living on my farm. And I want to keep this in the family, keep passing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My thing is, I would love to see them stay in farming. I have moved out of the state. I live in West Virginia. I have a cattle farm down there, but up here, I bet Appenzell, he's tilling them, and we want to keep them that way. I have two daughters, both teachers. One's in Florida, one's in Virginia. Neither one of them I know will want the farm. So someday they'll sell it, and this is excuse me. It's the only way that I have to control to keep it in farming. If we do something like this, that's the only thing I have. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
I'm sorry, that was a bat and I can't hear you. I'm Tom Spigman, and I didn't know if you were asking if I wanted to say anything.
Yes, do you want to testify? Is there anybody else here, even if you didn't sign up, anybody that wants to speak? We'll swear you in real fast, sworn everybody else, okay? You solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Absolutely. I only have the two things I wanted to say to you folks. First of all, congratulations on the election. And that sounds like a paid political announcement itself, doesn't it? Anyway, two things about our farm that I think you know, but I don't know that you know, so I want you to know. How's that? Number one is we are part of the watershed to Still Pond Creek. And that on our farm we have 3 waterways that end up directly in Still Pond Creek. And our neighbors are protected, and I think we should be protected too. The other thing, actually there's 3 things I wanted you to know. Our topography runs from the second highest spot in Kent County to probably the second lowest spot in Kent County. We've got some nice ravines, we've got intermittent streams, we've got a wonderful pond, and all good things to be preserved. Third is we are within the current rural legacy area, which I know you guys know a lot more about than I do. But it means that to someone, we might be more desirable than someone else. I think it's very desirable, but then again, I am highly prejudiced. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has anything else, I don't know if staff has anything. If no one has anything else, then if the commissioners have any more discussion, you would want to have a motion to close.
Make a motion to approve all 6 farms into the district.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think you want to close the public hearing first and then make the motion. Right, you want to officially close it so that time for comment has ended, and then you would make your motion to approve.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now you're back in your regular meeting, and you can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agricultural district as has been discussed.
A second.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Susan O'Neill from the Upper Shore Regional Council is here to give a presentation this evening. Goodness.
Guess they're not interested in Upper Shore, huh? Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this evening. I'd like to thank Shelley for asking me to come. Thank Jamie, my economic development partner in the region, and save the best for last, thank Ron. Commissioner Fithian for being the chair and helping me transition. As I was introduced as Susan O'Neill, I'm excited to say I just celebrated my first year with the Upper Shore Regional Council. It did fly by. But tonight I've been asked just to give you a brief overview of the Upper Shore Regional Council and Maryland Regional Councils. So So the Upper Regional Council is one of 5 regional planning and development councils created by the state of Maryland for the economic and social development of rural communities. Their purpose is to be a mechanism for local governments to maximize funding, planning, human resources, and to elevate the economy and the quality of life in the region. So I was going to do a brief overview of each regional council. I do like this slide, but I decided later on that I misplaced it, so I'm going to skip through it real quick because I think this map is a better visual to talk about the regional councils. So as I said, there's 5 regional councils. The first one was the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland, so you can see it all the way at the bottom. It's Charles, Calvert, and St. Mary's, and it was actually created in 1966. The second one was the Tri-County Council for Western Maryland, which is Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington. That was created in 1971. So they're almost the outliers. You can see where the purposes of regional councils began to develop because they were kind of out there by themselves. In 2001, the Tri-County Council for the Lower Shore, which is in your pink, which is in the blue, Wycomico, Somerset, and Worcester, and then the Midshore Regional Council were both created in 2001. And then us in our infancy, which has been a long time since I've said that, was created in 2003. So we are the Cecil, Kent, and Queen Anne's County. And just a side note, I'd like to point out, if you look at the regional councils, actually the Tri-County Council for Western Maryland and the Upper Shore are the only ones where all 3 counties do not touch, which adds a different level of coordination and issues to be tackled, not necessarily bad. It's just a different level of coordination. So specifically, I'll get on to the Upper Shore Regional Council. As I stated, it's Cecil, Kent, and Queen Anne's County. Sometimes I feel like I have my children, I got to switch the names up so nobody feels like they're pigeonholed somewhere. The Upper Shore Regional Council was created in 2003, and I list the annotated code if you wanted to look at it. Regional councils are independent organizations and cannot by law be moved into any departments. So the governor cannot take, or the legislature, take the council and move it, let's say, under the Maryland Department of Commerce or the Maryland Department of Ag. They're supposed to be independent and help represent the local needs of that region. We are nonprofit, so we can go after different type of funding buckets. We have a 33-member council, which is made up of 3 representatives from each county council commissioner, have 3 votes. A municipality from each county, and the municipalities themselves come together in each county and decide who's going to come to who's going to have the votes on the meeting, and then the state representatives. We also have a 7-member executive board, and thank Jamie who pointed out I had an adding error earlier. But so the 7-member executive board is made up of a chairman, a first vice chair, second vice chair, third vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and somebody from the legislature. What needs to be pointed out here is all 3 chairs, the first, second, and third, must come from one respective county. So one from Cecil, one from Kent, one from Queen Anne's. It's actually stated in the bylaws, and it's also stated their rotation. So in 2019, the first vice chair is Queen Anne's, second is Kent, and third is Cecil. Our funding mechanisms, we have 3 funding mechanisms. The one is Maryland Department of Commerce. Each of the counties contribute. And then the Rural Maryland Prosperity Investment Fund. And I'm sure as new council people, you're probably having acronyms left and right thrown at you. But it's known as RIMPIF through the Rural Maryland Council. So the funding is not, the amount of funding is not usually set or guaranteed. It just depends on how each entity, the Maryland Department of Commerce and the Rural Maryland Council, how their budget proceeds through the legislative session. Then based on that, the Upper Shore Regional Council comes up with a scope of work, a work plan that's approved by our board, and then we take it to each of those, Department of Commerce, Rural Maryland Prosperity, or Rural Maryland Council, and then they go through it, and then they vote on whether they approve it or not. Now, as I stated, and this is I should point out, that's the same for all the regional councils. So all 5 councils have that same process. Now, other councils, they are older and have other funding mechanisms at the moment, which are open to the Upper Shore Regional Council down the road. But for instance, the Tri-County Council of Lower Eastern Shore runs the whole shore transit system, and they also run the Workforce Investment Board. So there's other programming, other funding going on there. Western Maryland coordinates, they're the coordinating transportation body for MTA out there. And I just bring that up so there's a lot of flexibility and ability for these regional councils to help tackle regional issues and make it, what's the word I'm looking, unique to that particular region. So brief overview of 2018. There was more accomplished than this, and I have the work plans and so forth. I just picked 3 things, one from each county. I'd be more than happy to meet and go into more detail with all the work plans if you would like. But for instance, the Cecil County Tourism Video, we provided some assistance, worked closely with Jamie to provide some advertising and marketing for their hot desks and site selection and things like that. And then we also did the Queen Anne's, we helped fund the 301 impact study that Queen Anne's County wanted to have done. What I like to think of as one of our bigger accomplishments, which was a regional one, which is not just the leaves, but it's the Upper Shore Agriculture Equity Incentive Matching Fund. I know it's a mouthful. So the Upper Shore Regional Council was allocated $150,000 to, it was $130,000 FY18 and then $120 FY18 and $30,000 FY19, but to work with MARBIDCO, which is the Maryland Agriculture Resource-Based, as you can see, Development Corporation. And MARBIDCO is a quasi-public economic development organization that their main mission, their main focus is small and family-owned farm, forestry, and seafood businesses, and they provide targeted financial services to help that industry. So what we have done by creating this loan program is, let's see, here we go. So it's to help farmers who are going after MARBIDCO programs, which you'll see in a moment, if they need to improve the quality of their applications. So for instance, right now MARBIDCO requires the loan recipient to provide at least 5% of the hard costs. So let's say they're right there on the edge and they might not really be able to apply for MARBIDCO. Well, if they're a farm within our region, then Upper Shore Regional Council, when we created this fund, they can grant the lesser of the two, either 5% or $5,000 to help shore up their application. There's a big focus on retention and expansion also. In the instance of beginning farmers, which is actually defined as less than 10 years old, less than 10 years, not 10 years old, beginning farmers do not have to provide 5% of the hard costs. They can provide less. So we provide a matching grant of whatever the farmer provides up to 5% or $15,000. So if the farmer provides 2%, we provide 2%. So I know it's probably a lot of information and a lot of details, but we're really excited because it's a new program. We're going to go out there. We have a draft brochure coming along, and we're really going to hope that it makes a difference. This program is also being used in the Lower Shore, and they really feel like it's been working. So these are all the lists of the loan programs that our equity fund is eligible. I'm not going to read them, but at least you'll have them. And then when we have the brochure, you'll also have that there too. Quickly, I know you guys are. Move on to 19. We're going to do some local. We're doing some local projects. We're assisting Fair Hill Foundation with their Fair Hill International 5-Star event. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but that is considered the top-notch equine event. And unfortunately, I'm not that familiar with it, but this will be, there's like 1 of 4 events in the world, and it's supposed to have an economic impact of actually 30 million, and I believe it'll ripple over into the whole region. As you can see, updating some tourism videos, updating the harvest directory and shore vines. We're doing a regional program, and we'll be working with each of our economic development partners to create a pilot program for small business marketing to help a lot of the downtowns, the Main Street communities, sustainable communities, the arts and entertainment communities. And I know I don't keep moving along. We're working with different, working to strengthen entrepreneurs. We're still working with Jamie and her hot desks. Cecil County is interested in doing a hot desk program and being a part of the stream of hot desks that are up and down the Eastern Shore. They might want to make theirs virtual. Those are some of the projects that we're working on. Queen Anne's County and Talbot County are very interested in looking at a regional high school, and that's something they've been pursuing. My understanding is for a couple years, talking about, and it was Dorchester, Talbot. So we've been working with the Queen Anne's County Chamber and working with the different school systems, and we helped organize a bus trip to Washington County because they wanted a tour of their technology school, which is absolutely a fabulous school. So instead of reading each one of these are things we're trying to do, is trying to partner with other organizations, get the biggest bang for our buck, and try to pursue what the region is asking us. Let's see. Oh, I did that really fast, didn't I? Sorry. I was busy talking and not paying attention to my notes. The only other thing I wanted to state quickly is we were lucky enough to work with a professor from the University of Maryland who was really helping try to gather data to create what is the vision that the region wants, and how can the Upper Shore Regional Council help with that vision. And two things that came up consistently. We interviewed all the board, the full council. We interviewed economic development partners. We interviewed county administrators. The two things is transportation for rural medical appointments came up, and business retention and growth. Is there something that the Upper Shore Regional Council can do, providing a bigger program that the counties can take and make it individual? So those are two examples of the things we're pursuing. So, hopefully I didn't talk too fast. So.
Any questions?
We have a meeting of the Upper Shore Regional Council at Mako here this winter.
Yes, we have a meeting at Mako on Thursday. I believe it's 10:30, and it's right before the joint lunch. We'll be doing our slate of officers and some other basic agenda items, and then we have to just dive right in and start thinking, what are we going to do for FY20 as we're transitioning into more regional projects.
And I don't know whether you've made Susan aware that Tom Mason and I will be your two members.
Okay.
From Kent County. Now I'm the chairman, and I'll be going out. You're getting ready to fire me. Somebody else, but you said we will hold the second vice and the secretary position or something.
So we have second vice chair, which is in bylaws, so one of you is going to have to step up to the plate. And then we still haven't finalized the secretary or treasurer position. So
for a year, right?
Mm-hmm. And the chairman actually can do longer if necessary, but yeah, that's the basics. So, and actually, Kent County, all three of you have votes on the full council. You're the only county that does, because you only have three, but it'll be you two gentlemen that will be on the executive board.
Very good.
And I might comment on this Marbitco. That's a very good program. I know when we expanded my dairy, our family's dairy through my son, we got a Marbitco loan, and that's very helpful. So
they have a good reputation.
Way to see you're all working with them.
Oh, thank you. We were excited. It was small things get us excited. So okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. If there's anything else anybody would need, I'd gladly meet with you one-on-one or as a group, or
thank you very much.
Have a firing party.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have to get out of your way.
Next, we have Chris Maxwell from St. Paul's Parish.
And we have Tony Biddle with me. I think you have a letter in your package describing what's in front of you. Just to recap, St. Paul's and Chesapeake Farms share a stream that runs between our two properties. That stream was overflowing with water flow, endangering grave sites. It was also backing up and flooding Sandy Bottom Road. We worked with the county, with Chesapeake Farms and DNR, got a grant from Chesapeake Bay Trust to do a plan for a permanent correction of the problems. That plan was done during the summer of 2018. It was completed and submitted to the Chesapeake Bay Trust. The final step is to execute the plan, which is rather comprehensive, going beyond St. Paul's property up Sandy Bottom Road another several hundred feet, widening the drainage ditch along Sandy Bottom Road, and then developing a stream restoration project all along between Sandy Bottom Road and St. Paul's Pond. That project is expected to cost in the neighborhood of $1 million. We would like to ask the commissioners to join with us in applying to the DNR for a grant under, is it Atlantic Coastal and Bay Waters?
Coastal and Bay, Atlantic Bay Trust.
We received a small grant from them 2 years ago to take care of the most immediate problems, and that came through with the cooperation of the county.
It's just running it through us. It's a continuation of the project that was started. It's no financial, nothing for us financially, and I make a motion that we partner with.
Yeah, but if I might add, there's no financial liability. It's a lot of work, and as we'll have to do RFPs for contractors. We'll have to, it's a lot of legwork, but we've just been through that exercise, and we've been through the construction, the application for a construction grant for the first severe part that we did. So the systems, I think, are pretty well in place. Team is there, and the benefit, which we should say to the county, is twofold. One, that flooding problem on Sandy Bottom Road gets sort of knee-deep, apparently, in just severe rainstorms. That problem will be corrected. That's an immediate one. The longer-term one is that the project generates significant WIP credits. That goes directly to the county.
Is the second part of the grant process through the same people they were through?
Same people.
Same people.
And, the individuals in charge were introduced by the largesse of Mr. Fithian.
So hopefully they wouldn't give us the first part. They weren't thinking about giving us the second part.
They have been on this every step of the way. They were, including through the planning, where they weren't directly involved, but another fund that they provide funds to, called the Watershed Assistance Program. Trust, that just lends itself to design projects. Now we're back to construction, so we're back to where we started.
I'd like to be able to take credit for getting that project off to a good start, but I think the fact that Miss Tallulah Bankhead's grave was in jeopardy had much more to do with it than I do. She's buried at St. Paul's and was very close to the stream so I think she's the one that moved it along.
We just didn't want to see her sort of move along.
Right. Yeah. I'll make a motion that we work with St. Paul's and
I second that.
continue the project.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have Soul Systems on the agenda that is here to discuss and present regarding personal property tax on a Massey solar project.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners, people of Kent County. My name's Chris Daly. I'm an investment associate with Sol Systems. We're a DC-based solar developer, and I'm joined here tonight with Leslie Hodge, the Senior Director of Investments. We're here to discuss Project Blue Star and a payment in lieu of taxes, or a pilot for the project. We were here about a month ago to speak with the Commissioners, and we were requested to come back with a revised proposal. So we'll walk quickly through the background of the project, update you on a few developments, and then talk through why we believe a pilot would be a good solution. So Blue Star has some legs, it has a bit of history. It's a 7.8 megawatt system based in Massey, Maryland. Aggregate net metering, meaning that there's actually 3 separate systems that feed all the power directly to Washington College. The system's actually going to use up about 80% of Washington College's energy usage. The project was initially developed in 2014 by One Energy Renewables. And from the get-go, the idea was the project should be using best-in-class solar development techniques, meaning that they wanted to be a good stakeholder with all parties involved. One Energy signed a lease with David Bramble Incorporated in October of 2014, and soon after that began development activities, early stage permitting, early site plans, and that is where Sol Systems came in. In late 2016, we began thinking about acquiring the project from One Energy Renewables, and by April of 2017, we were able to purchase the project and sign a power purchase agreement, or PPA, with Washington College. And I want to note here that Washington College will be off-taking the power, but there also have been a partner throughout. Washington College has long stated that they wanted to have a solar system to meet their sustainability goals, and they went through several developers and with proposals, and they landed with Sol because we committed to being a partner with them. Beyond the actual power they'll be getting from the system, the students on a semester-wide basis will come by the system, check out, see what the solar system looks like, and it'll be integrated into their curriculum for their environmental sciences. Additionally, in May, the plan right now is to have the regents from the college to visit the site while it's under construction after graduation, just as a nice to see where the electricity is coming from. Also note that we tried to be a responsible and responsive stakeholder with Kent County. We've worked very closely with Amy Mordock, who actually was here earlier tonight. We're on permitting. We've worked very closely with Ms. Heller on county administration issues, and we've tried to be responsive and responsible and a equitable partner throughout this whole process. And so that takes us where we've been, and now where we are today. When we were here last month, since then we were able to close with an investor to secure financing for the project. We've also selected our engineering, procurement, and construction contractor that will end up building the project. Once we have resolution and clarity around the pilot proposal, we'll issue what they call notice to proceed, and we'll begin construction and moving earth in late January or early February. As you can see, we've invested, Sol Systems has invested quite a bit of money in this project, over $1.3 million since the inception of the project. And while most solar projects wouldn't invest that much at this stage, usually you typically wait until the big investments come at construction. The reason why, or one of the factors why we were able to invest in this, is because the economic benefit to Sol included the assumption that this project would be tax exempt. And I want to clarify that assumption that the project would be tax exempt was not us being aggressive or overly optimistic of what we could get from the county. We had emails from from the state tax assessor copied with the county that the project would be exempt. And if you actually look at the minutes from last October, when the commission was considering a CHR 4 2017, it was noted that aggregate net metering projects would be exempt from personal property tax. And over the course of the past year, that has changed, and that's why we are here to request a pilot. So just as a bit of background, as mentioned, we had spoken with both the county and the state tax assessor that the project would be tax exempt. But then internally at the state tax assessor, there was an opinion circulated by an assistant attorney general stating that, and this is nuanced, that an aggregate net metering system that was not affixed to the actual building would no longer be exempt from this tax. So our system is in Massey, and obviously Washington College is here, is in Chestertown, so the system is not affixed to the building, but it is still an aggregate net metering system, and we believe that has always been the intention, that it would be exempt. So we're here to request a pilot. the pilot would enable us to move forward with the project, and you have all the ancillary benefits that come along with that, the energy, clean energy being sent to Washington College, the educational benefit there, the tax revenue from the real property taxes we expect to go up based on the fact that you're taking a system that is about $5 million or more and affixing it to the land, and it should increase the real property taxes as well. And that's how we arrived at our pilot. So you have seen the proposal, but just to sum it up for you and for the audience, the pilot proposal is for 35 years. I'll note that the actual system or the lease with Bramble is for 25 with an extension possible for 10 years, but we want to commit to the full 35 years and pay the pilot there. The nominal amount in today's dollars is $260,000 plus, and we have the system depreciating over time, and we'll be paying about 30% of what we figured the max tax would be. And we're happy to discuss both the project's history, the pilot proposal itself, and open to any suggestions or comments that you guys may have. So thank you.
Is there any, I want to put this, truth to the fact that this has been sold?
Sure.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the Blue Star project is a project that Soul Systems has developed. We're going to continue to develop it, and we're going to be acting to be the party to build the project. The project company was formed to help with the financing of the project, and the project company was transferred to the financing party. So yes, in the sense that the project company has been transferred, it has been, and that's so that it has a long-term asset owner. The landlord is aware of that. The college is aware of that. Sure to get all necessary approvals for that transfer.
Is there any contingencies to that sale on this pilot program being approved? And what I'm getting at is, what if this isn't approved?
If the pilot's not approved, then we will have to go back and review the economics, but the project company has been sold.
Project what?
The project company has been sold, so
okay.
it will impact Soul Systems, but the project will likely move forward.
I think it will change the economics of the project for Soul Systems, which could in turn influence when and how we were to issue notice to proceed to actually begin.
That's correct.
Take it under advisement for a while, and we'll get back to them.
Yeah, I think we'd like to send this to our Economic Development Committee, let them look at it and see what, if it's, what's good for King County. We sitting here as three commissioners, we want to do what's best for King County. And I understand you want to do what's good for your company. And I mean, and I believe you that you're, green energy, you want to do what's good for the community, but I guess personally, when I look at this and I see where, it should be $73,000, you're asking us to take $21,000. That to me is a pretty steep discount. We'd all like to get that. And when also in your literature you say your investors want to make 5 to 7%, yeah, we'd all like to make 5 to 7%, but sometimes that's not possible. Maybe they need to take a little less. Maybe if things have changed, you need to go back to Washington College and say, hey, look, we can't do this unless we raise what you're paying for electric by X amount. I think there's some things here that need to be looked at, and that's why we want to send it to the Economic Committee.
I'm not against the program. I just think we need to do our due diligence a little more and have a few more heads involved on the county level to look at it, make suggestions either way. Whether we sit here and do 0% or 25% or 50%, I don't feel I have enough information to determine what's good for the county, as far as what's good for their taxpayers out there.
And it kind of come at a time when, as you know, the last time you were here, there was two other different faces sitting up here, so it's kind of new to everybody, or at least to two of them, and there's been a big change, in my opinion, since the last time you were here. That's certainly a positive move, and so we want to do what's right for both parties, and we're just going to take just a little while to.
Yeah, so we're not saying no, we just need some more time to digest the information.
No, I mean, we want to see the project come. It's just a matter that we've got to, like Ronnie says, two of us are new. I was here the last time you presented it in the audience, so I was somewhat familiar with that. But I think we need to. I think it's too much to put on us at this moment to vote on this. So we would like to.
I think it would be fair to say that we could let you know something in 30 days.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Fine, if that's okay.
That's fair enough.
Absolutely, and if I could just say, I think, we want what's best for Kent County as well. I know that might sound self-serving at this point, but we purposefully decided to develop in Kent County because it had been advertised that it was a place for economic development and that there was this exemption. So it's one of the reasons why we came to Kent County, and we want what's best for not only ourselves but also for David A. Bramble, the landowner in this case that is hoping to be able to make this land, which is zoned industrial, hoping to make it useful, and also hoping to be a good partner with Washington College. So we do see this very much as a Kent County project.
I'd like to see this worked out. It's just a little much for us right now, the three of us, to make these mathematical decisions at this time. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're not against you. We're for you. We just got to make it work for everybody, and that's where we are. So, do we need a motion to delay this? Or I
don't think you need to take. You're not taking any action. So
okay.
You would decide when you come back in 30 days or whenever. That's when you would have the motion as to how you want to proceed.
How you want to proceed?
I will say that I think we want to act as expedient as possible, so
right.
I will try our best to get back to you within 30 days if that's acceptable.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming back, and I appreciate the change.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Tom, I guess you're up on
Yes, I need Inspector Edler.
There he is.
The situation is this. We have bring the applicant up here. We have a licensee who had a person on the license resign, so that person needs to be replaced. And we have a qualified person to go on the license. One of the things that we're required to do is do a criminal history. We generally do that by fingerprinting. The code does not specify as to how we require or how we obtain the criminal history. Obviously, the easiest way to do it and the most thorough way to do it is by fingerprinting. The potential person to be on the license, for whatever reason, they were unable to get the fingerprints through no fault of his. They made some attempts. So what we've done in the past when we've had this situation, we've had the inspector run case search so we can see if there's anything in Maryland. That's available to anybody that we can check to see if there's any criminal cases that weren't expunged. And then we bring the applicant in and place the applicant under oath and question the applicant as to whether or not they have any criminal history. And if that's acceptable to you, then you could approve the addition of the applicant to the license.
If Rob doesn't have an objection, I mean, I know he has a criminal.
Because Jared said normally may not have 100 fingerprints go through, it's not a problem. Second one I've had in like the last year.
So you're comfortable with your due diligence?
Well, no, we have to swear him in, and he has to testify under oath that he doesn't have any criminal history.
All right.
All right.
Sir, could you please raise your right hand? You solemnly promise or swear under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in the matter before us shall be true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Jonathan Plummer, 411 High Street.
And are you a registered voter and property owner in Kent County, Maryland?
I am.
And have you been for 2 years?
More like 30 years.
Okay. Sir, do you have any criminal record?
I do not.
And when I ask you if you have any criminal record, that would be not just in Maryland, not just in the last 3 years, but that would mean no criminal convictions any place, anytime, anywhere.
None at all.
No DWIs, DUIs?
One DUI,
Okay, when did you have the DUI?
2000.
And were you placed on probation?
Yes.
Did you successfully complete that probation?
Yeah, it's probation before justice. Judgment.
Probation before judgment?
Yeah.
And you weren't violated, you successfully completed that?
Did.
Okay. Do you feel that, did you learn, well, when you went through probation, did you learn anything from that?
Yeah.
Did that give you a better awareness of the alcohol laws of the state of Maryland?
It did.
I'll make a motion that we accept his oath of, our plea of,
I second it.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good luck.
thank you.
And Rob, if you could stay where you are, I believe you have one more item for us.
Well, yeah, briefly. Back on October 31st, we modified license number 429A belonging to Pips Bar and Discount Liquors, basically just to include the new regulation for beer, wine, and liquor tasting. Just want to report that's been changed.
Okay.
Can you check the establishment name? Is it Tailgate?
Yes, it is. It's Tailgate. It's Tailgate Market. I'm sorry, wrong document. It's Tailgate Market. They also changed from beer wine tasting to beer wine liquor tasting. I apologize. That was done December 13th, not October 31st.
Smooth.
Okay.
Did I confuse everybody enough? Is that
All right.
Thank you, Rob.
thanks?
We have Rosemary Ramsey Granillo, who is the director of our local management board, here to present a few items.
Hi. I'm here tonight to have you assign two different contracts. The first contract is an extension agreement with the Department of Housing and Community Development. The page I gave you is not the actual contract, but it does explain how things are changing, and I thought it would be important information for you to hear about. The front flow chart on this page shows how homelessness services are funded and organized for Kent County residents, and this is how we have traditionally done it. And so this grant is still under this structure, and the grant extension will continue through, if approved, continues through June. But the way that it works currently is that the funding comes from the Department of Housing and Community Development. It's approved by the Kent County Commissioners. Part of it is funneled through the Department of Social Services to cover rental assistance, and part of it is funneled through the local management board, which is then contracted with St. Martin's Ministries to provide homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing services. And so if homelessness prevention is if you have back rent due or you have an eviction notice for some reason and you want to stay where you are, these funds can come in and pay the landlord directly so you do not have to leave that residence. And rapid rehousing is if you are actually homeless and need to get into a place. And so these funds can cover case management, first and last month rent, and rent for a certain period of time. And that money directly goes to local landlords and utility companies, because sometimes it's for electric bills, et cetera, and for the case management services provided by St. Martin's. The transition is on the back of our page, and that now is going to have all of those dollars, instead of coming through the local management board and social services, it's all going to be going through our core service agency. They manage our continuum of care, which they're based in Easton, and we work with them closely. And then they are giving out the funds directly to organizations like St. Martin's and other providers. So in dollars, it's not much of a difference. Like, there will still be the funding stream from the Department of Housing and Community Development. The thing that I would like to bring to your attention is that we no longer will have a local entity managing the dollars and kind of playing this liaison for these services. And so if, you know, the LMB isn't involved, or social services isn't directly involved, or MRDC or others, it's harder for residents to know that these dollars are available to them, especially if they have to go to Easton or they have to connect with St. Martin's. It's easier for folks to fall through the cracks. And so it's something that our local management board will be looking at as we are updating our community plan. But I just want to make sure you're aware of this transition that is coming after June.
And DSS is also aware and are trying to make trying to make plans to accommodate the transition as well. So they've been working very closely with Rosie.
Pretty challenging because other counties have either a housing office or a nonprofit that is really dedicated to providing these kinds of services. And currently in Kent County, none of our nonprofits provide homelessness services. So we have to rely on other partners like St. Martin's Ministries. But other than that, if we could make a motion to approve the extension for the contract, because we have until June.
I did review it. It's fine as far as form goes.
It seems it's a little more work on your part now. Is that what you were trying to say, or?
No, I mean,
it's easier. I mean,
it's been more work for the local management board to manage these funds for the past 2 years. We don't receive any administrative funds or et cetera, but we've been doing it because we realize the importance of the services. But I just worry that if we're taken out of the picture and then we don't have a kind of a representative paying close attention to these kinds of services and resources, it might kind of fall off people's radar.
Yeah, people won't find out about it.
I'll make a motion to approve the extension.
I second it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And my second piece is our contract with Dewey's Partners to do our community planning process. Part of the COMAR has local management boards doing planning processes at least every 5 years, and we're in the midst of ours. We worked with Just Cause Consulting, Ms. Linda Walls, to do a data audit looking at all of our statistics, and now we're in the community engagement phase, and Dewey's Partners is been selected by our board to provide that facilitation. And this is the document I gave you is really just a timeline of our work plan. So if you're interested in engaging on any piece of that, right now we're kind of in the gathering input phase, but in February, March, we'll be gearing up to do more outreach, focus groups, et cetera, conversations.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
So are there any other questions about these areas? Thank you.
Really? Thank you.
Ms. Pat Merritt has joined us this evening with the FY19 financial statements as of October 31st, 2019.
Okay, so I'm here tonight to go over the financial results of the county as of October 31st. Start by looking at the general fund. I think that's as big as I can get it. Okay, so as of the end of October, if we talk about the revenues first, we're just about at budget. We're a little bit favorable, by about just under $75,000. You can see the categories there, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about what's making up those variances. On the expenditure side, we're just under $625,000 favorable with the spending through the first 4 months. And again, you can see that most of it is in salaries and benefits and operating and contingency. and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But as of the end of the first 4 months, we're just under $700,000 favorable to budget. So, good picture for the first 4 months. If we look at what's going on with the revenues and the largest variances, they were slightly more favorable at the end of 3 months. The property tax, transfer tax, and the recordation tax are still favorable. They're 27% higher and 26% higher than last year, but it's a little bit lower favorable percentage than when last we looked at the 3 months projection. Property taxes are favorable by $91,000. Service charges are up slightly. Our income tax, is our second largest revenue stream, is unfavorable by about $236,000 at the end of October. So at the end of January, we'll have the final numbers for the tax year, and we'll see where we finished up. But so all in all, that's what leads us to our just under $75,000 favorable variance on the revenue side. On the expense side, our largest favorable variance was in salaries and benefits. Most of it was in full-time salaries. We've had vacancies in our EMS department, planning and zoning, sheriff's office. So those numbers continue to run favorable. And the salary related with those. We've also had some savings in seasonal salaries, our election worker salaries, and we've had some unfavorable variances in leave payouts and overtime. So those are the things that are contributing to that $258,000 favorable variance. Operating expenditures, which are our supplies and our services, they're running about $216,000 favorable through the first 4 months. And you can see the departments that are experiencing most of those favorable variances. In highways and streets, it's mostly supplies. Detention center, it's mostly prisoner services, and I believe most of that's due to the population levels. We're running a little bit favorable insurance. The sheriff's office, I think, is mostly the training that's probably going to occur later in the year. And you can see the other departments there. Our allocations are pretty much right on track. We really haven't spent anything out of our contingency through the first 4 months. I think you've approved a couple items, but we haven't actually spent them yet. So still seeing a good, healthy, favorable variance there. So our total expenditures are just under $625,000 to the good. Any questions in the general fund?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Do you know of any reason why our income would go up and down? I mean, because the economy still seems to be rolling a little bit. So I was just curious, do you know what drives that?
It's a very complicated formula. We don't receive the money directly; it goes to the state, and they have a model based on historical results. So, and they pay us out at different times over the year. So, it's all historical. So, if the economy is going up or down, they're distributing the money based on.
So it has nothing to do with whether people are out there working overtime. It has to do with historical data based off of what we get from the state.
They distribute it. Even if our money was going up, they would probably distribute it lower. If we were getting more money, and they were distributing it historically, we would probably get a smaller piece of the pie until they realized when they true up the income tax returns that our income really had gone up. So they true it up once a year when they have all the income taxes in, and then they reset the percentages for the distribution for the next year. So it's not the best system, and it's hard to judge where you are accurately.
Not really a true number of what's going on out there.
It's an estimate. The payments distributed to us are all estimates until we get the tax returns. So in January, at the end of January, we will have the final results for 2017, and then we'll really be able to see how we did compared to 2016.
I think it's important to note that, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have visibility to whether it's one-time gains or incomes.
Yeah, when you file your Maryland state return, you just bring over your adjusted gross income from your federal. So you don't know whether it's capital gains, you don't know whether it's payroll related, you really don't know what the source of the income is that's coming over to the Maryland return. So when our revenue streams go up and down, it's very hard to know what's driving it. A couple years ago, there were huge capital gains taxes that were collected, and we just couldn't identify when we got that pot of money how much of it was one time and how much of it was recurring. So it's difficult to tell.
And because our population is so small, one taxpayer could make a different choice, and it could drive our distributions either higher or lower than we anticipated.
So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Just trying to get a little background before we go into business.
There's a great presentation that was done that shows the distribution model that I can send to you, and how the state determines what they give us, so throughout the year. So happy to pass that on to you. Okay, so water, wastewater. If we take a look at where we ended up there, our revenues were slightly favorable. Our expenditures are running a little bit unfavorable, 2.9%, and it's pretty consistent with what the September results were. Overall, the subsidy is just slightly higher than we had anticipated, and it's because of the unfavorable variance in the expenditures. So the 21.0% compared to the 20.1%. And if we look at what's contributing to those variances, the revenues, it's mostly in septic service charges where we're seeing the favorable variances, and I believe we have an old septic hauler that has returned, so we have additional septic haulers, I think, is what's causing that increase in the revenue there. Our salaries and benefits are slightly favorable, and on the operating expenses, we're seeing unfavorable variances in the electric and the chemicals. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes through the year. Capital projects. We have approved just under $3.9 million in capital projects, and we've spent about $48,000 so far through the first 4 months. So those projects are mostly going to unfold in the later half of the year. But you can see them listed there in the amounts that have been spent. In the water wastewater capital projects, we have 3 projects going on this year that total just under $2.7 million. And again, we've spent very little so far this year. Those projects are mostly going to be spent in the back half. We spent a little over $106,000 so far. Any questions?
No.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Hale, Human Resources, has a few personnel actions for your consideration this evening. First items for discussion involve the State's Attorney's Office. So with us, we have the interim and the deputy State's Attorney until January 1st. Bobby Mel and Brian DeGregory. You can come forward if you'd like. And you can pull up an extra chair to the table if that's easier.
Good evening. Okay, I would like to begin this evening with a brief background of the requests that are before you this evening. In March of 2016, then State's Attorney Harris Murphy submitted a request to the county commissioners to reset some of the salaries within the State's Attorney's office. At the time, there was also additional requests to relocate the office, and so through the years, some of those issues were dealt with and entertained. However, the positions, the salaries of the individuals working in the State's Attorney's office has plugged along with increases similar to what the county commissioners have granted to all the county employees. Because the State's Attorney's office really isn't governed by the county and HR, in 2015, for instance, when we did a personnel study and of the positions and redid the job specs, their positions weren't included in there. Okay, so that's a little bit of the background. Moving forward to relatively within a short time of tonight, The situation was revisited by the interim state's attorney, Mr. Mao, and he put forward a letter requesting that some changes be made. Prior to that, though, we met and discussed how changes could occur, and it was requested of my department for the first position this evening, to perform a desk audit, and that's where the individual performing the job would actually write down the duties, how often they do them, the percentage of time they spend, and everything. That allowed us to look at the duties and look at where it would fit in if they were a county employee, so where it would fit in on the scale, the pay scale. So the first request before you is to approve a reclassification of the legal administrative aid position in the state's attorney's office to a circuit court coordinator / office manager. And again, at the time, we did not have an illegal administrative aid in our scale, so when that individual was hired, a salary was recommended and then was ultimately approved. So in this situation, we're asking, we found that the duties that they do are equivalent to that of an office manager position, and that position in our scale resides in a grade 6. So the request is to reset the salary to the minimum of grade 6.
And if I read that right, we've got money in this year's budget to cover the increase, but it would obviously represent an increase going forward in years.
Yes. At this point, it is an increase to the budget. However, due to vacancies as well as the information that came forward, that increase was set to correspond with a meeting in November, so we have an additional month savings there. So through vacancies, and the money's in the budget, but moving forward, it's a recurring expense.
Yeah.
Yes. And HR supports the change. It will ultimately put them better situated among their counterparts in other counties and also with the county employees.
Is that the only one?
There's another one behind this.
Want to take them both?
Okay. So the next one is to reset the salary of the district court coordinator, and we're asking that to be moved into the equivalent of our grade 5 salary. The two positions are relatively the same, the district court coordinator and the circuit court coordinator, with the exception of the office manager duties. So if the office manager and circuit court coordinator is reclassed to a grade 6, we're requesting to put the district court coordinator in the equivalent of grade 5. And again, that comes with a cost increase. However, the budget for FY19 could absorb it, and it would become a recurring expense moving forward.
Seems like to me that you've everybody's done their homework, and it makes sense, and I'd make a motion to approve the adjustment.
Second. Do we have any discussion? The only thing I would like to, I think the request is legitimate, but why not just wait until the budget to do this?
Well, on behalf of HR, the fact that there's some motion in the department, there's been a resignation, and now there's refilling of positions. So, in my opinion, it's cleaner to do it at the time these changes. Actually, some of the changes have already occurred, but we want to reset it moving forward so that they're getting the benefit of equivalent salaries.
They already have the money in the budget.
Yeah, it's money that wasn't spent that's in the budget.
Right. There's no additional dollars needed for this year.
Necessary this year.
You're not,
If it's sustainable, you'll need money going forward.
there's a part-time position you're not filling, it appears.
Right now, there is, yes. There's a half position still vacant.
And Commissioner Mason or any of the commissioners, if you have questions that you would like Brian or I to answer directly, since we're in the office day to day, one of the issues here is a transition of our prior circuit court coordinator. And these aren't positions that you can just go out and find somebody to fill. These are skills that take months, if not over a year, to acquire to be able to serve these roles. You need specific training on many systems, background checks, you need to go through clearance. You need training in MDEC. I'm sure Mr. Yeager can tell you that's not an easy task. So we met with the staff and redouble their efforts and work harder than take the time to train somebody in this part-time position. That's the reason why we felt it was appropriate to come forward for that reason, because they are working extremely hard. It's money that should go to helping them is just not being spent. And it is also that Ms. Carroll in this new position has been with the office for 10 years. And because somebody who's only been recently there is being appointed in the admin 1 position, their salaries are very close. If Ms. Carroll were to leave the office for her 10 years of experience, it would be a detriment. District court might not have the prestige of circuit court, but its volume is much larger. And for every case, every single citation issued in traffic, she has to go in and manage that case specifically. So if somebody gets charged with 10 traffic tickets, each one is a separate case. Devastating for us to lose her, and this juncture would be appropriate. However, we try to be as frugal as possible. You see some of the savings, not only from the position there, but some of the policies that we implemented through our predecessor, Judge Murphy, in diverting nonviolent offenders with substance abuse issues out of the jails and into treatment, saving the county costs. That's one of the things we're very serious about. I tend to take this request lightly. I don't enjoy coming to you commissioners to ask for money, but at this juncture we thought it would be appropriate to do so.
Well, I don't think anybody's saying that what you're doing isn't important and that you've been frugal with the money and all. I guess all I'm thinking is if, I mean, we're talking about 6 months, have the budget request when, the budget comes in, and personally, I could be approved at that time, but we've got the motion on the floor, and those in favor, say aye. Or you got something else you want to say?
No.
All right, say aye. Opposed? No. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Now have a Parks and Recreation.
Right, so before you this evening is seasonal request from Parks and Rec for seasonal hiring. This happens throughout the year. We have a big gear up of hiring for the summer season with lifeguards and summer programs, but all year long as the programs change, Parks and Rec requests to hire either new employees or resituate or move some employees around. I will say that the requests that come from this department, the director and her designee interview if that's appropriate, and they interview without the HR's help. And that's the way we've done it in the past. Any requests that come for full-time positions of the staff, the regular staff, that comes through HR. So I simply present the information from Parks and Rec about their hiring, and all of the positions requested are budgeted in the current budget.
Yeah, these are budgeted items.
They're all budgeted items, yeah.
We have a motion to approve the applicants for these positions in Parks and Rec.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Well, Marty and I talked on the phone, just so everybody knows. These are mostly rehires, correct?
Most of them are rehires. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 new ones in there. One, for instance, is currently on payroll. They're asking her to become an instructor of a different program. And a lot of the requests coming forward, you'll notice when we hire for the specific program, but then there's other programs so that she can move them around. So some of them are just a formal request, but they're already on payroll, and some of them are new hires. It all depends on the skill sets that she has for the programs.
Any other discussion? No. Then all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay. And lastly, I would just like to say on behalf of the employees, we really appreciate the additional time off to be with our families and to rejuvenate our bodies and soul. I know the employees will really appreciate it, so thank you very much.
Be here Thursday.
Just be here Thursday? it easier to take 2 more days off, though. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mike Bolds, Public Works Director, has 3 items for discussion tonight.
Good evening. I'll echo what Marty said about appreciation for the day off. I'll be up in Pennsylvania visiting grandchildren, so I need a day off just to relax.
You need a day off to recover.
Yes, exactly. The first item on your agenda is the Cypress Street waterline repair. Back in September, the commissioners approved a contract to do a repair of a waterline leak on Cypress Street and the amount of $147,000. What makes that waterline repair difficult is it goes under a stream and it's bored to a depth of 12 feet, which makes simple excavation difficult. We would have had to close the street, use trench boxes and everything. So there's a boring component of this repair. The contractor subcontracts the boring work out to another firm. He got some prices to do that and went with the low bidder to the benefit of the county at the time. There was a lead time to get the piping delivered, and we've had several attempts to try to get started with the boring contractor. To try to do that, he's not been responsive to that. We had a project meeting with him scheduled about a week ago, and he was a no-show. So recommendation in talking to the contractor is to not use that boring contractor for being non-responsive to the job. Our contractor went back to the second proposal that he had and discussed it with him. The original boring contractor's price was $40,000. Next low was $65,000. He went back to that subcontractor and got him to reduce his price by $10,000 in an effort to try to get this job going again. So that leaves us with a net of increase of $15,000 to try to get this work done. This has been an active leak since, I'm going to guess, around June, late June, and trying to get this worked out. It's a very difficult area to work in. We're hoping with this project that it's going to also take care of possibly 2 other leaks that are in the vicinity of that. So what we're asking for the commissioners is, 1, to approve a contract with Joyner Excavating for an increase in their contract from $147,000 to $62,000. And also, at the time we did the first contract, we needed to borrow from contingency $7,000. We would need to go to contingency for $15,000 to cover that additional cost. Now, we have in our repair and maintenance budget, as part of this project, $15,000 and potential in case we have to do any repairs to the state highway. So if everything goes better than it has, we shouldn't have to need that money, and then maybe we wouldn't have to go into contingency. But I need that in my bucket because we want to get this project proceeding. Our concerns with this whole thing is we get into the colder weather, we're going to have ice freezes on that leak, potential damage to the road. So I need to get this going.
But I understand that you're asking for 15 more.
15 more thousand from contingency.
And you'd like for us to take it out of contingency, but there's a good chance that you may not need it if things go right.
If we don't have to do any repairs to the state road, and that's going to be up to the state inspector.
Well, it certainly needs to be fixed, so I make a motion that we approve the expenditure of $15,000 out of contingency with the hopes that maybe the street repair goes better, then we don't have to take it.
Yeah, second.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to add really quickly that we do not have an amendment prepared for you this evening. So as part of the motion, I'd like you to consider pending legal review signature authority delegated to somebody so that we can get this underway as fast as possible.
And I'll tell you, I took a quick look at the contract. I think it was for $162,000.
Mhm.
The only thing I had, there was a typo in item 8, where there's a word missing.
Okay.
It's minor. But I would agree with the county administrator on that motion, but I don't anticipate any problems with legal review other than correcting that typo.
Yes.
Okay.
So I second it pending the.
Pending the review.
Yeah, okay.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
So that motion included approving the contract change also, as well as the contingency.
62,000, not 147.
Yep.
That's
Right.
my understanding of the motion.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the automated metering infrastructure contract award. This is a capital project for the water and sewer division. What this amounts to is installing antennas on 5 of our water towers to allow us to remotely collect water meter data by actually reading the data or signals from the water meters rather than having to go out and drive around and collect that. It's going to save us in terms of labor doing that because it's done quarterly, as well as provide better customer service for the folks that are on the county water system, because we can do inquiries at any time there's a request. We can provide more rapid leak detection for vacation homes if someone's not in, as opposed to getting a leak detection on a quarterly read. So it's a benefit. A lot of communities are going to that. The contract that we have, we're looking for approval for supplying the equipment and software from Core and Main to supply the sell antennas and equipment for the reader, and that's in the amount of $74,000. One thing to note, we had to do sole source on this because our meters are manufactured by Neptune, and by consistency we need to utilize Neptune facilities in order to read our meters. So Core and Main is the designated authorized supplier for Neptune infrastructure. The other motion we're requesting is a sole source contract with Noash Construction. They will actually do the install on the 5 county water towers. The amount of that contract is $39,862.30. Noash Construction has done the installs for the Neptune systems in Chestertown and Cambridge, so they have a lot of experience doing that. By making them a contract with the county rather than a sub through Core and Main, we save ourselves a 10% markup in the cost. So there's a cost savings in being able to do that. Any questions?
It's a budgeted item,
Yes, this is a capital item.
one that we had budgeted.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
How much money will be saved in labor?
It'll be something we'll have to evaluate. One of the things that was part of the evaluation was to look at 6 towers. We're going to do 5 towers. Butlertown we're leaving out because of its proximity to Georgetown. Once those towers go into service, we can see how many meters it picks up, and we're hopeful that we'll get that. The ones that we don't pick up, we have the ability to upgrade the actual meter in the ground to have more of a output and try to pick those up. So that'll tell us how many meters now we'll do automatically. Then the next step, we'll still have a couple areas that we can't collect meter data because of lack of tower access. One's Delta Heights, which is kind of out there by the Nike base, and the other is the Millington water system. We don't have any tower out there because Millington has the system there. So that'll be something we'll be evaluate once we get that. One of the other considerations that we might look at as we go forward, and I don't want Pat to stab me in the back here, but would be the potential to go to monthly billing instead of quarterly billing on water and sewer, so that customers are used to getting monthly bills for phone and TV and cable and everything, and they can get a monthly bill in terms of that. Helps with budget. Shooting me with a bad look.
So what are you spending now on reading these meters?
I'd have to get that information for you. When it comes to budget time, that'll probably be a good discussion where we look at how that goes.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The third item we have on the agenda is a sewer allocation request. This is for what used to be the Sailing Emporium. It's been bought by Haven Emporium LLC. They are needing sewer capacity in the Green Lane system that the county is. Presently, their sewer goes directly to Rock Hall, but they need to disconnect from that and connect to the county system. We've been meeting with them and working with them, and we've agreed a calculation of 8 EDUs, equivalent EDUs, for servicing the marina and the facilities that are currently proposed there. They're in the process of putting in their grinder pump for a potential connection so that they can continue renovations to their office space. But the connection there has been reviewed to Green Lane that we can handle that flow coming into that section. And basically there's a public works agreement that anybody coming into the system has to sign. And there's an allocation fee associated with the sewer service. That fee is $11,800 per EDU as set by the county. And the total proposed allocation fee associated with this public works agreement would be $94,400.
Mike, what's the with eight EDUs like that? What's their quarterly sewer bill run? Do you know what is that? $1,000 or so? Is it $100 and some dollars a quarter?
I think so. Pat, you got it better?
No, just sewer.
Sewer. Trying to pull it up really fast.
Yeah.
That's close enough. I was just curious. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the Public Works Agreement, but we waive the allocation fee due to the fact that they were an existing business when that system was put down Green Lane. And as you know, no one down there has paid allocation fees that were there when the system was put down there. They didn't have a need for it at that time. They do have a need for it this time. So if they could have gotten it in the beginning for no allocation fee, I think it's only fair that we give it to them this time for the.
Can I ask, are we essentially, they're currently a town customer? The sewage has always been treated at our plant, but instead of them being a town customer, they will now be a county customer, but the sewer is going to be treated at the same plant.
Same plant.
The town's plant, yes.
So we'll be billing them rather than the town billing them as a customer.
That's correct.
And they'll be using a new lateral line to connect to our mains.
That is correct.
I made a motion to wait.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have an answer to your question. The sewer-only fee for 12,000 gallons per quarter is $154.87. So for 8 EDUs, that's $1,236.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That essentially more revenue than what we were receiving.
About $1,200 more dollars than we currently for transporting. Okay, I have a couple items for you this evening. The first of which deals with the Board of Appeals. We have a 3-member Board of Appeals and an alternate for when one of those members is unavailable. Curiously, all 3 members' terms expire in January, and they're supposed to be staggered appointments, so it just has to be throughout the years. Somehow they all ended up lining up. So the recommendation is to reappoint the 3 current members as well as reappoint the alternate, but to re-stagger their terms so that at one given point we're not going to have it where inadvertently terms weren't reappointed and you don't have any Board of Appeals members.
What do you say? Sorry, you lost me there.
What happens is under the land use ordinance, the initial terms were supposed to be set up so not everybody's term came up at the same time. That way you had some continuity, so you didn't have 3 new members all the time.
What are you going to do, space them out a year or something?
Yeah, so for what happened was, even though they were supposed to be staggered, for whatever reason, something happened in the appointment process where now all the terms are up at the same time. So this is a correction to get them staggered again. So we're going to have one member 3 years, one member 2 years, and another member 1 year. So they'll be staggered.
And you'll just allow these people to continue to be members until that, however.
So what you'll be doing is next year you're going to be reappointing one. 2 years from now you'll be reappointing another. Then 3 years the third. And the only thing, the letter to the alternate should specify that that's an alternate member.
I was just asking a question, do we have any new applicants? Are we going to go with the same people that have served? Is there any need for a discussion on that? I mean, I don't know the history of this.
If I could chime in, I think what happened was the planning director realized that the terms expired, which is not unusual that the board gets appointed and then, for whatever reason, when it's time to reappoint, it doesn't happen. So she determined that we have 3 members on the board and their terms are all expiring. And so we need to reappoint so that next time there's business, they're duly appointed. So that's kind of the history of this.
Ready to go, which their expirations are in the beginning of January, so it's actually prior to your next meeting in January.
So we have a planning board, and something goes through.
It's the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So if something's appealed, then it goes back to a separate board?
Yes.
There are other, right, and there are other reasons it might go there as well.
The Board of Zoning Appeals essentially...
But they are 2 separate boards.
Right. If somebody wants a variance, from a setback, let's say, they go to the Board of Appeals. Or if somebody has a decision, if there's a decision made by the zoning administrator and they're agreed by that, then they could appeal that to the Board of Appeals. Or if they want to have a special exception use on their property, the land use ordinance provides that they would go to the Board of Appeals for approval. The Planning Commission's role is they make recommendations to the Board of Appeals, but the Board of Appeals is the actual decision maker.
I just don't know. I mean, there's no objection in not reappointing the same.
No, they've all agreed that they would do it, I assume. So I'll make the motion that we appoint the same 4 members, the 3 members and the alternate with, I guess you don't have a...
You're going to appoint 1 to a 3-year term, 1 to a 2-year term, and 1 to a 1-year term.
I understand how you stagger the 3 people, but the alternate, what do we do? Have
1-year term, wasn't
That
it?
one is a reappointment to serve a 1-year term, and then you can reevaluate or...
Then I make a motion that we reappoint the 4 members under the staggered term system.
And since I haven't heard any outcry to change this, I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I just make the point that since you have the staggered terms, that you as a board, this board will have the opportunity to look at 2 of the members and the alternate during your term of office.
But according to this, it says 2 of them expire on January the 7th, 2022. That's not staggered.
No, but they'll just let them, the one of them will get a 1-year reappointment, I assume, or a 3-year reappointment, and then everybody will continue to serve until they're reappointed. Right?
What?
No, I don't know.
Or they just have to work out amongst themselves who gets the 1 and who gets the 3.
No, I think that
motion-
was
right.
that was determined. I don't know if the planning director wants to speak on this. That might be.
Sure. So we looked at the membership and thought that the sitting chair should be extended for the full term, and then the other 2 members that could be reappointed at a 2-year interval. We weren't looking to stagger every single member so that each member had a different date. We just wanted to get back to a point where there was some staggering rather than, I think by coincidence and by accident, we ended up with all 4 of the members, the 3 members and the alternate, all ended up somehow with terms expiring on the very same date. So we weren't looking to ensure that each member had a staggered term, but just so that there was a staggering so that all 4 of them wouldn't, their terms wouldn't expire on the same date.
Isn't that what's envisioned in the land use ordinance?
Right, it's in the, actually, I think it's...
I think it's in,
Or is it in
yeah,
the code?
it's prior.
It's in the code that the membership should be staggered.
So this is a correction, so we're following our code.
Correct.
So there's 2 of them that are 2022. That's a 3-year term.
And Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it might be cumbersome if each member's term expired at a different year.
Got you. So I misspoke. So you have 2 members are going to have 3-year terms. 1 member is going to have a 2-year term, and the alternate's going to have a 1-year term. Is that correct? How you have it?
Yes, I believe that's the way this reads.
What is the position of the alternate? I mean, do they attend every meeting, or they only attend when one of the others can't? Or
Yeah, in the past, what has happened is the alternate attends meetings on a regular basis while they're being trained as to what the types of cases that will come before them. And so the sitting alternate has been attending all of the meetings probably for a year, and it's probably appropriate at this point that he attend as needed when another member can't be present.
Well, I mean, I'll make a motion that we have reappoint the same 4 people with staggered terms
It's presented.
as been presented.
I think we had that motion.
Yeah.
Seconded. Now, we've had discussion caused by me. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another reappointment. This is with the Ethics Commission. There has been an expiration in Lansing Williams' term on the Ethics Commission. The staff and chairman of the Ethics Commission recommend reappointment.
That just tells you ain't no speakers.
Motion for the reappointment?
If nobody has a problem, I'll make a motion that we reappoint one person on the Ethics Commission.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
There's a thank you letter to Mr. Berkmeyer for his years served as the county commissioner representative on the Planning Commission, enclosed in your packet for signature. No motion necessary. The next item it relates to the sheriff's office. We, as a part of our attritioning of our vehicles, we're going with an equity lease program to update our vehicles, and that was approved with the budget. And the sheriff's office has 1 police interceptor vehicle that still has yet to be ordered. So they're for signature for the order of that. In your packet. As well, the authorized users are the county commissioners. So currently, the authorized signature authority lies with the commissioners. So the prior board each had signature authority. So we would like to update that form with your 3 names so that you can sign for all future vehicles.
Okay, so you need a motion to that effect?
That would be great.
Make a motion to approve the authorized signers for the vehicle lease forms.
Vehicle lease forms.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
And then if we could have a vote to order the police interceptor, we can move forward with that request.
Make a motion to approve the ordering of the police interceptor.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you. There has been a request for a letter of support that you briefly reviewed at our last meeting. This is the expansion of the rural legacy area. This is a request from the Land Conservancy. And you sent this request to the Planning Commission in the Ag Advisory Board for review and a recommendation. They have both voted favorably for a letter of support for this effort. This effort expands and adds new designated areas in the rural legacy areas. Kenton Cecil will be known as the Harvest Crescent Rural Legacy Area. And this is in conjunction with the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation efforts.
Make a motion to approve the letter of support.
Second it.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Attached to your packet for consideration is the 2019 meeting calendar. First and third Tuesdays of every month are legislative days, so they are on your calendars automatically unless they fall on a holiday, in which case the second Tuesday would be the legislative day and the meeting. And there are various other meetings that are included in the calendar that are going to be needed, for example, to align with our budget process. So we are asking for approval of the 2019 calendar year meeting calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
I have a few items for report out this evening. The first is a letter that was sent on behalf of Jamie Williams applying for the Lofton Scholarship. And if she gets this scholarship in the amount of $540, then those funds that have been set aside to pay for that, her testing for certification, for marketing or other economic development efforts. There is also a letter of thank you in your packet to a commission member as well as a student member who has graduated from college and has moved on, recognizing their efforts and their dedication to the Economic Development Commission. And finally, there is an item in your packet from an attorney with the Saunders Law Firm, Lance Young. And this letter is in support of legislation that most likely the Economic Development Commission will be presenting for your consideration. And what the legislative request, what they will be asking for is a change to the Maryland Annotated State Code that changes our definition of country inn from 10 rooms to 15 rooms, which would align for a liquor license, which would align with our definition in our code book.
For zoning purposes, our land use ordinance was changed a few years ago to provide that a country inn can have up to 15 rooms. Under the state alcoholic beverage code, liquor licenses can be granted to a country inn, but the country inn can have no more than 10 rooms. So you have a situation where in Kent County, you can have a country inn up to 15 rooms, but if that country inn has any more than 10 rooms, they can't get a liquor license. So this would, if legislation is enacted, state legislation is enacted to the Alcoholic Beverage Code, then any country inn in Kent County could apply for a liquor license, not just those that have 10 rooms or fewer. So it affects the ones that have between 11 and 15 rooms.
So they have to take this to Annapolis and present it like they did the prior?
There's no action on this in particular letter. This is simply a letter saying that you should consider requesting that legislation in our next legislative session.
Mr. Young, Great Oak Manor applied for a liquor license as a country inn. And during the course of the hearing, it came out that Great Oak has more than 10 rooms. I think they have 13. I forget. But the number was less than 15 but greater than 10. Under the state code, we could not grant them a liquor license because they had more than 10 rooms. So that action was tabled, and he's come back requesting that the county be supportive of state legislation to put the number of rooms that you can have in a country inn to get a liquor license up to the maximum at 15 rather than 10, to make it consistent with the county's definition of a country inn.
But he's going to pursue this. I mean,
Well, no, actually, our Economic Development Commission has been looking at these liquor licenses, and they will likely be presenting this to you. It has not even been presented yet officially. So this letter kind of comes before their presentation, but because he did submit it, we wanted you to be aware.
The likelihood of this happening is greater if the county commissioners had a proposal that was supported by county economic development, and then as commissioners you went to our state Annapolis delegation, either Delegate Jacobs or Senator Hershey, and asked, could you sponsor a bill to provide for this? That's probably the only way that something like this would happen in the foreseeable future.
And they just previously did one last year, I believe.
Correct, not relating to country inn liquor licenses, but some of the alcohol beverage
Correct.
rules for Kent County.
We're trying to make the alcoholic beverage laws more relevant to today's business climate than what they were years before. And the big one was the 60-40 rule, because the price of alcohol has increased much higher than the price of food, so that rule was a bit out of date. And there were a few other things we cleaned up too.
And this being a local bill, it's pretty much, I mean,
If you support
it's not
it.
a big deal. If we support it, it's probably going to go through. It doesn't affect anybody, and it's bringing our two policies together, have them on the same line.
so at this point, we just want to support this letter.
At this point, that's just for informational purposes.
No motion needed. Okay.
Now we have public comment.
Okay, it's time for, man, we don't have any public comment. No one signed up unless someone else,
They still ask the media and then ask the rest of them if they.
is there any media review or no? Anyone else? No? Then I guess we need to ask for a motion to
We have to.
close the open session and go into closed session.
I'm going to make a motion that we go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter and to consult with staff consultants or other individuals about providing or pending or potential litigation.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye. Tom, you got to sign that where it says